Hey, welcome back. Hi, everybody, to Carl and Rick Talk Risk. How are you? Rick?
I don't know. I'm nervous. I was just told that you're going to social contract with me after the call, so I don't know if that means I'm gone or not. But I do
That's
think that we have to applaud, Carl on his very great hygiene that he's so confident in his nostrils that we could have the podcast
boy.
situated, directed so it's looking directly up his nose. So hey, I applaud you for that. I've got a few of the sniffles today, so I'm going with this image. But obviously, I
Yeah,
dressed up and groomed. My makeup artist and hairstylist spent a lot of time getting me ready for this call.
that's right. Yeah. Well, no sniffles, but I've got a cough. Well, hopefully it doesn't show up.
Oh no.
Um, yeah. Well, first, Rick, last time we were very bold with our the title of our last episode and said it's the last word on AI we're gonna have for a while. But actually do have something to say. Right after we recorded that, I found I guess The Economist focused a little bit about AI and writing, which I thought was really interesting because I mean I think I've mentioned it here. I've mentioned it to my co-editor at Intelligent Risk. We're starting to see, glimmers of what people are doing that's actually useful with writing. And The Economist focused on this. And there's two articles, and I put them in the comments on the LinkedIn post for that episode. So if you're on LinkedIn, find me or Rick, and if you see the comment on there, you'll see the two articles, and they're free to read. So one is about how to spot AI writing, and how AI is getting better and better. Like the thing about it was you could always pick up AI writing because of the long dash, the M dash or long dash, whatever.
M
Like
dash.
AI uses that much more than humans normally do. It's actually getting much better. Like more recent versions,
I
Claude
realize
and
that you do realize that all of our listeners have just picked up that verbally you used three M dashes in
yeah.
that previous sentence. But anyhow,
Uh,
I'm distracting you. Go on.
what are you saying of AI, Rick? I am here in person. And the other one was something also interesting. To deal with AI, we need to become better editors. Like we really need to think about where. I thought it was going to be about something slightly different. It was basically how to direct AI better, and it gave some really nice quotes from authors. I think Hemingway was in there, and so on about their um, confrontational relationships with editors when they were authors. And yeah, both articles are very good. I learned some things from them. So this is now the final word on writing an AI from Rick and Carl for a while. But go read those Economist articles after you listen to our episode, of course. So Rick, for today, um, Dunning-Kruger effect. Let's jump into that. You had to correct me on what it is. Maybe it's best you explain.
Well, actually, I want to do a spin-off of Dunning-Kruger on the sociological version of Dunning-Kruger. So Dunning-Kruger, as many people will know, is the effect that those with a little bit of knowledge about a subject have a much higher degree of confidence in talking about that subject and in their knowledge of the subject than those who are true experts. And the true experts in a subject tend to have a much lower level of confidence in their knowledge. Basically, and some, if we want to be charitable, is the experts know enough to know what they don't know, whereas the novices are too ignorant to know what they're ignorant about. I phrase that slightly differently, but the organizational behaviorists don't like my finance version of, basically you're too stupid to know how stupid you are. Um,
Rick, can we give a quick popular culture example of the Dunning-Kruger effect? I'll see if you agree with me or not, especially for our American audience. Jim Cramer.
um,
Do you agree?
I'm going to back away a bit from Jim Cramer.
Uh,
Okay, I'm not. I'm going to pounce. I'm not going to pounce on him. And having said that, he's actually part of the problem, but probably not in the way that you're thinking or a lot of our viewers are thinking. First off, I have to admit, full disclosure, I gave this lecture in class yesterday, and I was thinking of using Jim Cramer as Exhibit A. Okay, but, Jim Cramer actually does have some legitimate chops. Okay, but I think that he's interesting to look at because he is 100% a marketing machine, which actually focuses on the point that I would like to discuss in this. I suspect that Jim Cramer knows from a pure credibility point of view uh, that he's, basically his own caricature. Okay.
yeah.
And I suspect he's fine with that as, he whistles down the street on his way to the bank from that day's episode. And of course, it's so emphatic. Yes, I realize the researchers have looked at his calls and realized that, yes, you'd be far better off doing basically the inverse of whatever he says. I get
I
all that.
I think they put that into action actually, and there's an index you can buy that shorts everything he goes long for, and it does pretty well.
Well, well,
Yeah.
well, well, there you go. Okay. I learn something new every day from Carl. But the point is, he's into entertainment.
Mhm.
Okay. And he knows it, or I'm highly confident that he knows it. And, I I can't blame him for that. But, but, it leads directly to the point I want to make about what I call the sociological Dunning-Kruger effect. And I think that it directly affects risk management, and it's part of risk management's marketing problem, and it's part of risk management's credibility problem. And so, if I can just flip for a second into Phil Tetlock's work, okay? Tetlock, and again, I think we have to give a shout out to Dan Gardner here for the book. And I always get this wrong. Is it Super Forecasters?
Yeah,
Uh,
that's
I,
Tetlock's book.
yeah, and
Yep.
Tetlock and Gardner's book. Okay,
Oh, I didn't know he had a.
yeah,
Okay.
Dan Gardner, who by the way I think should be required reading. His book on the risk, the science and politics of fear, I think should be on every risk manager's must read reading list. I think it's a great book. Um, but getting back, what I call the sociological Dunning-Kruger effect, and again, I'm stealing this straight from Tetlock, is that he noticed that when he went back and looked at media pundits' um, proclamations, okay,
Mm.
they turned out to be spectacularly bad. In fact, they turned out to be, spectacularly bad compared to, more or less random Joe spelling off.
Mm.
And so this led to studies on the effect of the more credible, the more professional a person in the media looks, the more we assume that they're an expert and the more weight we give to their sayings
Right.
than someone who perhaps gives a much more nuanced response. So to the media pundit who says, stock markets are going up 7.6927363% in the next 18 months. And, these are the three exact sectors that are going to lead, and these are the two that are going to trail. They get far more play and get weighted far more by the public than the actual experienced investor professional who says, look, we got a lot of uncertainty in the market. There's several different elements that could pivot, greatly from A to B. And so therefore, here are like 7 main scenarios that could play out along with a host of others. They get zero credibility and they're given almost zero weight by the public. And I think that this has important lessons for risk management, and that there's a philosophical trade-off between how Jim Cramer do we go. Okay, oh yeah, this is gonna happen for absolutely, versus look, we need to take a more nuanced approach.
Yeah.
And calling a spade, a lot of management, particularly senior management, they don't want the nuances. They want the answer, damn it. Okay. And this creates a real dilemma. When someone wants an answer, do you give them the answer or do you give them the nuanced approach? And I think that this is something that risk management has to have a serious conversation about, because it affects internal reports and it affects external reports.
Yeah, exactly. It also affects how we talk to the front office. That's
oh yeah, it
something
affects how you talk to back office, front office.
Yeah,
all the way. It affects how you talk to your colleagues. It affects how you, as a senior, manager, give out instructions for the group.
Yeah. I'm reminded of some of our previous conversations when you were talking, because I'm thinking, if you go to the front office and you say, listen, I actually don't know much about this, but what I can lend to this conversation is a good head for process and how can we design this so identified risks are mitigated and we have some controls in place and so on. But you need to tell me, how's this supposed to work? How does the market operate? I think that leads to a very productive conversation, instead of coming in as a risk manager and saying, well, I already know about how bonds are trading in this market. Here's a policy I'm going to throw at you. Could you read that over and apply it? That conversation doesn't go well. It's not very humble, first of all, and it doesn't draw knowledge out of the front office and get them talking, right? We should almost be like journalists when we go to them. Get them talking, ask them some open-ended questions. I think I'm going on a little bit of a tangent, but these were kind of the thoughts running through my head when you said this. I think it's pretty instructive for us managers.
But I'm gonna totally disagree with you. I think that the conversations that are more valued by the front office, where risk management comes, I already know everything that there is to know about the bond market. This is what the numbers tell us. This is your VAR to nth degree of accuracy. This is, whatever form of duration that you're using is to nth degree of accuracy. No questions, no conversation, no nuances. My experience is ultimately those are the ones that are listened to. Yes, you can have the great nuanced conversation, but almost always what's going to be picked out is the one number that they want.
Yeah.
So you have a 12-minute conversation and it's 12 seconds that is actually A, remembered, and B, acted on, and the other 11 minutes and 48 seconds are instantaneously discarded.
Yeah, exactly. I'm curious because obviously you're talking about the Dunning-Kruger in the context of a class and you're talking to students. And I imagine for all of us, it's very easy to forget about the Dunning-Kruger effect and just go about how we do things and forget that this is at play. How can students and professionals remind themselves that this is something they should keep in mind? Is there, what do you think?
And this is the real dilemma. So one of the things when I talk about behavioral finance, and I also include my own version, sociological finance, which I realize is weird and not many other people are talking about. That's okay. Um, I do something on overconfidence. Okay. And actually, I did this at the Canadian National Derivatives Conference a few years ago. So I asked everyone to write down a range for which they are 90% confident that the true answer was going to be in that range. Okay.
Okay.
And I also prefaced it to go over several other uh, uh, behavioral texts. And by the way, I was stealing this straight from the book, famous book, well-known book by Nosfinger. I believe it's called The Psychology of Investing. I might be incorrect on that. If I am, we'll correct it in the notes after this, and we'll give the reference to the book.
Okay.
But what I do is I give this exercise and I tell them, write down a range in which you're 90% confident. And I say, the range could be as large as you want, just be 90% confident. And so, for example, I for my students yesterday, I did this as well. But at the Canadian National Derivatives Conference, I gave them a question. So what's the weight of a blue whale? Okay. Now, if everyone is truly rating a range in which they're 90% confident, then 90% of the people in the room should have a range that encompasses the correct answer.
Okay.
And said out of roughly 150 people, there's only 3 people that had a range that was large enough. Okay. And so I explained the overconfidence effect. I explained it. And then I asked them another question. Okay. A number of books I'd read that year up to that date. And again, only one person had the appropriate range. And one person screamed, "This is stupid. Ask us something that we should know." So I asked them, what was the volume of trading on the Toronto Stock Exchange yesterday? And they all confidently wrote down the answer. And you have to remember, these are all, mainly derivative traders and risk managers and whatnot. And again, are you going to know the number? No. But, with 10 years of experience, you kind of have a little bit of feel, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
0 people got it. One person got pissed off and ran out of the room. And the reason I give this example is for these behavioral finance effects or these sociological finance effects, knowledge is not sufficient to really help you out. These are very, very, very hard to overcome. And so it's kind of like you need that, old soldier walk behind you or someone walk behind you to slap your back so you don't choke to death. But, in the movie Patton, Patton talks about how the Roman leaders used to have someone walk beside them whispering in their ears, "You are mortal, you are mortal, you are mortal." And in my opinion, and I'm obviously joking about this, to get over these behavioral facts, you need someone constantly in your ear to say, "You are mortal, you are mortal, you are mortal." Or you are subject to, behavioral finance quirks. You are subject to behavioral. I think that one, you have to consciously play the devil's advocate with yourself.
Yeah.
You have to consciously play devil's advocate with yourself. I again, sorry, I'm beating a dead horse, but cognitive diversity is key, not only within the group, but within yourself. And third is self-esteem. You have to have the self-esteem within yourself and within your group to say, "I'm not sure that's right," or "I think that we ought to look at a different angle." And that's very, very hard to do. And ironically, the person most likely to do that is a novice who knows nothing.
Yes.
The person most likely to shut them down is the person with limited experience who thinks that they know freaking everything. And the person likely to leave the room to have a coughing fit is the person who actually has the expertise and the experience, but they don't want to look silly or risk looking silly in front of their less experienced and less knowledgeable peers.
Yeah. Yep. No, that is very solid advice. Good teams give feedback and play devil's advocate and think, how could we be wrong? And don't risk overconfidence.
I realize that we're running out of time, but I want to give one specific example from my career. Okay, on the sociological part of Dunning-Kruger effect. So when I first started, in the industry, I was working on a derivatives desk, and I was kind of a marketing quant. And I sat next to the head of the desk. And boy, they were a piece of work. Okay, they were unique. So one day, they're on a call, okay, with a client, trying to convince them to buy something. I don't know what it was. And as you'll see, I really didn't know what it was. But my boss, hits the mute button, turns to me, goes, the return last year was 12%. What's its vol? And I'm there all eager, I've got, my, 4 different computer systems at that time that we had to have because nothing was integrated. I got my Bloomberg, I got my internal database system, I got my Excel sheet all set up. I'm ready to go. What's the ticker? What's the ticker? And he turns, the return was 12%. I go, what's the ticker? I'm going to type in the ticker instantly, get the data, give him the vol in 7 different ways for, whatever time period he wants.
Yeah.
He goes, God damn it, I told you the return was 12%. What's the vol? And I shout back, 17.62%. And, he's such an idiot that he didn't know that you can't calculate a vol from just a return. Yeah. Okay. But here's the point. He thought I was brilliant. They bragged all day about how I was able to give him the number that saved the deal. Okay, to this day, I don't know what the stock was. To this day, I have no idea what the vol was. I just spit out the first number that came in my head, and I made sure that sounded accurate. And I was going to say, God damn it, number is to match him. Yeah. And he thought I was brilliant. It was total unmitigated garbage.
Yeah. Yeah. An anti example. What not to team dynamic not to have.
I was just going to say that. I am not by any stretch of imagination recommending that. I'm just saying, pointing out that it's very sad that is what we praise and accomplish and reward. So I'm not going to beat Jim Cramer up. Okay? He's entertainment, and he's good at it.
Yeah, no, very good. Yeah. No, exactly. And I think
it's not all garbage of what he says. I think the specific stock recommendations he knows is equivalent to my shouting out 17.62%. I suspect even he will admit that. But again, he's getting more shekels than I get for trying to explain this to a group of university students at a U15 university. So go figure. Yeah.
He gets something a lot of risk managers don't get. Don't be boring. So got to give him credit. We should get some buzzers in here. What do you think, Jim? Jeez, I called you Jim too. Get some buzzers, get some stuff popping up. We could do it. A little AI.
So you think I have zero credibility? You call me a schmuck?
I just, yeah.
Here, will it help if I put my glasses on? Will I look smarter now? Like, should I comb my hair? Will that work if I wear a tie? I mean,
no, I'm just.
What about that? Like,
No, you see, you've got a better background going on. I love Jim's like he turns back and he's got all the buzzers and stuff. Funny noises.
What? You mean tell me I don't have chaos going on in the background as well?
Yours is fun. You got a fun background.
I mean, seriously, don't you want to see my dancing robot sometime?
Yeah, totally. All right. Thanks, Rick. Good chatting about Dunning-Kruger. We'll see everybody next week.
The sociological effects of Dunning-Kruger. Have a good one, everyone. Have fun. Stay sane out there.